We're forging ahead, but where are we going? That's the big question. I ask myself that question every day. I say, where am I going? Can I get away with it one more day? Just one more day? Can I fool them one more time? The Soviet news agency TASS says President Reagan wants the U.S. to be able to deploy more missiles. TASS says that's the real motive behind Reagan's new arms reduction plan, emphasizing the warhead strength of the two superpowers. TASS never mentions what Russia's real motive is, which, of course, they don't have to because we all know what their real motive is. Right now, 69 degrees. It's just absolutely lovely, incredibly lovely. You can't believe that Midtown Manhattan can seem. And the operative word there is seem. So clean. Just keep looking up at the sky. Don't look around. Don't look around. You know what I think they're trying to do? I think they're really trying to discourage anybody from coming into this incredible island. They have more streets dug up, more streets cordoned off, more pitfalls. And I tell you the dumbest thing of all are those poor horses. And I really feel sorry for them. I'm not mad at the horses. All you horses out there, I'm not mad at you. Let it be said that I never said a nasty word about a horse. Since I don't bet on horses, I don't hate horses. But what are they doing tying up those horses to those dumb, anachronistic carriages out there with all those gavons, 3/4 in a bag, wearing some thrown out high hats and charging $17 for a paltry, puny, insignificant, miserable half-hour ride? I'll tell you what they're doing. They're cluttering up the streets. They're creating more traffic problems. And they are not doing the city one bit of good.
You dislike Allende. I don't know particularly enough about it to have...
You know, sir, I respect...
But I do know...
Murray, let me tell you this. I respect your whole approach to this. I think you give evidence to a lot of knowledge and intelligence. Nevertheless, Murray,
yeah.
I want to point out this to you. I would rather that Murray and Bob would have a debate on what Allende would have been like in an academic sense, as we are now, than have Allende stay in power and turn out to be another great Western Hemisphere troublemaker. I mean, if we had knocked off Castro, we could be arguing, gee, I wonder if maybe he would have been a nice guy after all.
Right.
That would have been preferable to what we have.
Pamphlets throughout the world, Bob, that our CIA having arranged the assassination of Allende.
Well, that proves that sometimes the CIA does some things right.
Well,
Because I think it was great. I'm all for it.
well,
Matter of fact, I'd like to see the CIA get rid of Gaddafi next.
well, maybe.
And maybe even Castro before Gaddafi. But I appreciate your call, Marie, and I certainly admire our welcoming aboard an attorney. And he's Arthur C. Helton, director of the Political Asylum Project for the Lawyers Committee for International Human Rights. That's the name of the group. I understand you're directing the effort in New York of over 200 lawyers in a nationwide effort to work free for Haitian refugees who want political asylum in the United States. Why should these lawyers give up their time and give up their opportunity to earn an income to just see to it that there are more people in this overcrowded country as it is?
Well, I think it is in the highest tradition of the bar to provide service pro bono publico, or volunteer service, to those deserving indigents who need representation.
Who says they're deserving indigents? Who asked them to get in those boats and come to this country? And why do we have to take them in view of the fact that they, in some cases, landed elsewhere, and were sent packing from, where was it, Bermuda?
Talking about 1,800 Haitians. We're talking about now about 1,400 lawyers have come forward to represent them.
I don't know what's worse, the Haitians or the lawyers. Thank you very much, sir.
Goodbye.
What do you think ought to be done? And what do you think about the mayor making an announcement in Spanish? What do you think about that? Did mayors at the turn of the century make announcements in foreign languages? No. I think I think it stinks myself. Nobody asked me, but nobody has to. See, that's one advantage I have of being here. I don't have to respond to someone else asking me what I think. I can just say it. Lemuel Smith, convicted of first-degree murder in the death of Greenhaven prison guard Donna Payant, was sentenced to the electric chair today, but it apparently will be many months before he has to face the actual death penalty. As a matter of fact, you take it from me, he'll never get the death penalty, as they don't have the guts in the state to do what they should do. Anyway, Smith's attorney, guess who? William Kunstler, immediately filed an appeal, and it will take anywhere from 9 to 12 months before the case reaches the state court of appeals, the state's highest court. Who was it who said justice delayed is justice denied? Society, you'll be denied again. The White House says the president feels Soviet criticism of his revised strategic arms reduction offer is unhelpful. That's the word used. Bending over backward to be flexible so that the American press can feel satisfied. The Soviets claim Reagan's plan is aimed at gaining U.S. military superiority. What is the Soviet plan, by the way? And the White House says and the State Department both say the president's latest arms reduction proposals are a serious effort, and Soviet criticism is not helpful. The TASS news agency accused the United States of seeking to get the Soviet Union to disarm unilaterally and restructure its strategic defenses. How do they figure that? Well, it's easy. If you're a skunk in the Kremlin, you can figure anything anyway. And lo and behold, it looks as though they're up to their old tricks again, Billy and George. Well, I think he'd rather take George on than me, because the worst George could do is fire him, but when Billy gets fired, he still has to collect all that money anyway. At $1.5 million, it's obscene. Okay. But he's having trouble with George, and I love it. I love it. Oh, I love it. Hey, Billy had a chickie poo sitting at the dugout in Milwaukee, and wow, the Brewers were taking 2 out of 3 from the Yankees. Billy was busy being very charming with his girlfriend. Now, how would it be if I brought a girlfriend in while I was doing the program and talked to her and fooled around with her while I was supposed to be doing my work, whatever my work is? What is my work anyway? My work is avoiding work. And in case you just tuned in, this is the formerly famous Bob Grant, your humble servant, right here on WMCA. I'm going to take a sip of coffee. Remember those good old days when I was out in the morning from 9 until 1? Used to pour high in those days. Whatever happened to that picture? Kenny Fairchild take it to Texas with him. And some people just walked in the studio. I don't understand this place here. Here I'm trying to do a program, and I look up and 2 people walk in the studio. Someone said to me rather cynically, just a little before airtime, I had commented to him how empty, how obviously controlled the reception to His Holiness was at the airport outside of Warsaw yesterday. And of course it was controlled because the swine, the traitors, the Soviet stooges, the Kremlin puppets, who have Poland in a strangulation grip, were afraid of the spontaneous reaction to His Holiness, and so they had a handful of stooges, so they would be the stooges of stooges at the airport. And a man who, his name is Yablonsky, he would be what would be the president of the nation, more ceremonial post than anything else, greeted His Holiness on behalf of the state, and then the real meaningful words of Archbishop Klemp, Cardinal Klemp, and then His Holiness dutifully, but in a very pro forma way, thanked his hosts. But an hour later, St. John's Cathedral, His Holiness did what we expected him to do, what we hoped he would do. And he rekindled the hope of the Polish people. Someone cynically said, then what? Then he leaves and things are back the same they were. On the surface, things will be back the same, but only on the surface. I believe what has happened in Poland is pretty much like stretching a rubber band. You stretch it, it goes back to its former position, but it's never quite the same. This year, the federal government, and I think this is an outrage, the federal government is spending $138 million to subsidize bilingual education program in schools across the land. State and local governments are publishing ballots in Spanish and multiple other languages. Philadelphia and the state of Florida are offering civil service examinations in Spanish. And there are only 11 states in which one needs to know English to take a driver's license test. And increasingly the question is asked, why? Why? Critics say bilingual education programs, originally sold as a way to help foreign language speaking children make the transition to English, have become an end in themselves. Behind the programs are bilingual education teachers, some with a shaky knowledge of English anyway, and cultural organizations with a vested interest in the ongoing bilingual school curricula financed by federal dollars. Well, there's even a national bilingual education conference that draws hundreds of delegates from as far out as our Pacific territories for national lobbying conferences in luxury hotels. The theme at the last meeting in Washington was bilingualism in the national interest, a far cry from short-term transitional programs in the schools. And now a prestigious 20th Century Fund Task Force on Education, headed by the University of Massachusetts' Robert Wood, asks what good all the bilingual education programs achieve. What good do they achieve? He says, and I quote, anyone living in the United States who is unable to speak English cannot fully participate in our society, its culture, its politics. It recommends that federal funds now going to bilingual programs be used to teach non-English speaking children how to speak, read, and write English. On a parallel track, the English language has finally acquired its own organized lobby. It's called U.S. English and is open to all who agree that English is and must remain the only official language of the people of the United States. The proponents of English first have to know they're playing a dangerous game. Also, easily, they can be labeled as racist, reactionary, xenophobic, anti-Hispanic, all that other garbage. I want to tell you that the leaders of U.S. English are hardly know-nothings. Their honorary leader is a semanticist of Oriental origin, himself an immigrant, former Senator S.I. Hayakawa from California, who proposed a constitutional amendment affirming English as the official language of the United States. Chairman is Michigan physician John Tanton, founder of the Federation for American Immigration Reform. And the president is George Bacalus, who learned 4 languages, German, Yiddish, Flemish, and French before Gerda finally taught English following her arrival in America at the age of 16 after her family fled Nazi-occupied Europe. And I want to talk more about this. You're going to hear a lot more on this on the Bob Grant program because, ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply disturbed. I think of Edmund Burke, who said what he did about the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. And we've got to show our courage. We've got to stand up to this insanity. Teddy White, in his great book on America in the year 1982, published last year, of course, says the greatest danger facing the United States of America at the close of the 20th century is the bifurcation of our language, the insane march to a bilingual country. We can stop it. It's not too late. We can stop it. But once it arrives, it'll be too late. Wall Street staved off a huge loss with a late rally that trimmed some of the minus signs as the 6th session New York Stock Exchange rally. It came to an abrupt halt today. Dow Jones Industrials were off 6.1. closing at 1242.19 on a volume of 94.25 million shares. All that volume means that greedy stockbrokers like Harry Hazarai of Gunoff and Schlemiehlenthal, they make a lot of money on commissions. And that's why I hate these high-volume days. I hate to think of somebody like Harry Hazarai making all that money. That's why I have permission to tell you that if you see him driving his pea green Studebaker, 1946 model, license number SOB 6969, you do have my permission to run him over, especially if you're driving a Sherman tank. Earlier, concerning the danger of bilingualism. And I have contacted Dr. Hayakawa, and I have asked him how I could help, what I could do to help in the battle against probably, and I may be accused of overstating the case, but I don't believe I'm overstating the case when I say the battle against seeing our country destroyed. But I believe that this insane march toward bilingualism, if we continue the march to its inevitable conclusion, will destroy this great republic. Now, I want to point out that this operation called U.S. English, which so far operates on a shoestring, can be contacted at its cramped offices at 1419 21st Street Northwest in Washington. Certainly, this organization is not against Americans' full mastery of foreign languages. It is indeed giving strong support to improved, expanded foreign language programs in schools and universities. But for this reason, and I quote, for practical, economic, and foreign policy reasons. Now, one of the most intriguing things about the group is its requirement that its board members be masters of at least one foreign language. But on putting English first in the schools, the group is adamant. As a child, says the lady who escaped the Holocaust, Ms. Bickerles, I found language barriers could easily be overcome. Arriving in America without knowledge of English, I nevertheless learned it very fast. So did my friends among the immigrant students in my New York City high school. And so can, she claims, immigrant children today. Indeed, the question is compelling. If the children of earlier generations, speaking so many languages, from Italian and Polish to Portuguese and Chinese to Yiddish to Russian, if they could learn English, why not immigrant children now? Where bilingual issues reach red-hot Latin intensity is among those Hispanics who envision a large, independent, Spanish-speaking nation within the American nation, an American Quebec, as it were. Asked about taxpayer-supported Spanish education, Miami Mayor Morris Ferre is quoted in the May issue of Esquire as responding, and I quote the mayor, this guy's the mayor of Miami. Are you ready for this? Strap yourselves in, put the seatbelts on, listen to this. We demand this because we recognize that culture is vitally important if we are going to be able to solve our problems. But Ferre, who also boasts, quote, you can go through your whole life without having to speak English at all in today's Cuban-dominated Miami, doesn't necessarily speak for all Hispanics. Public separateness and trivialize the dilemma of the socially disadvantaged, writes the Mexican-American novelist Richard Rodriguez, author of Hunger of Memory. Mr. Rodriguez says America is a place where you don't lose your culture, you gain one. And the questions that remains for us all, native English-speaking and modern-day immigrant alike, are these. Why should ballots be printed in foreign languages when practically all political debate, the very essence of responsible citizenship, is conducted in English? Why should driver's license tests be given in foreign languages except for foreign visitors or for a limited time when road signs, warnings, and the voice of the traffic policeman are all in English? Why shouldn't bilingual education be limited, as U.S. English recommends, to a program of short-term instruction that uses the child's home language to help him for the first few months Any other choice consigns youngsters to segregated classrooms, the lifetimes of minimal or non-existent English outside the mainstream of American business and public life. They may easily, in Miss Buchanan's words, be doomed to be forever strangers in their new country. It could be the ultimate racism. Ladies and gentlemen, I have enlisted for the duration in this battle against the insanity of bilingualism. It has gone too far. We've got to stop it before it goes any farther. We're going to learn something. Don't let that word scare you. You know, I tell you got to be so careful to do a program like this where every listener is so precious. You don't want people tuning out because they say, oh, I'm going to learn something. Oh, that'll mean I'll have to think. No, you don't have to think. You just have to listen. And last week, he got together with Senator Charles Mathias, who's a Republican of Maryland. They introduced a resolution recommending that the president set up a commission on Central America. And let me tell you, Jackson and Mathias are an unlikely pair on foreign policy issues. Jackson, as we pointed out, is one of the harder-line Democrats, while Mathias is about as soft as you can possibly be. He's a soft liner, if there ever was one, Republican or Democrat. Matter of fact, you don't come much more liberal than Bob Mathias. About the only one who out-liberals him are the two fellows from Massachusetts, and they out-liberal anybody, anytime, anywhere. That's Teddy and Saunders. And I want to quote Ben Wattenberg, who has been observing the American scene as a pollster and as a journalist for a long time. Any country that can come up with a governmental device to raise Social Security taxes, teach children math, and build big new missiles ought to give that device a try in Central America when the Russians are coming, because, believe you me, the Russians are there in Central America. And we have the word of a Nicaraguan defector who bears plans for a bloody revolt in Central America. So let's not dig our own graves with our own inability to come to a decision. Sunny, very warm this afternoon, clear and mild tonight, sunny and hot tomorrow, with temperatures of the 90s. Friday, partly sunny and continued hot. We kept hearing in the weeks before was that the market would react favorably to the reappointment of Paul Volcker. So they reappoint him, and the market goes, what have you done for me lately? That's why people like Harry Hazarai, if you should run him down, for example, Harry Hazarai. You know who's Harry Hazarai? Harry Hazarai. Mr. Hazarai is a registered representative and vice president of Schlemiehlenthal Incorporated, a brokerage firm, and formerly known as Gunnef and Schlemiehlenthal. But Schlemiehlenthal got rid of Gunnef and Gunnef. Both Gunnefs got rid of him. Mr. Hazarai drives around in a pea green, that's the color, folks, pea green, 1946 Studebaker, license plate SOB 696969. And has that silly grin on his face as he drives to the tent that he pitched on a lawn in Hewlett on Cynthia Court. But anyway, enough of that. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the media stinks. I think television is stupid. I think the people who put the television news together ought to go have their heads examined. How does that grab you? I'm offended over the fact that they couldn't even keep up with the news over the weekend by watching the tube, because every time I tune it in, and this applies equally to all the networks, I was forced to watch the idiocy of these so-called gay pride marches over and over and over again. First they showed New York, then they showed Chicago, then they showed San Francisco. And I'll tell you something. A lot of people say, hey, Bob Grant, he's not like he used to be. He's gotten so mellow. He does. Well, what's mellow about this? when I tell you that I'm probably still the only guy in the whole ball of wax, the whole spectrum of the media, radio, television. Newspaper's a little different. There's still men of courage, women of courage, writing newspaper columns. Not much courage on the airwaves, no. I don't know why, I really don't, but there isn't. But I dare tell you that I see no consistency to this gay pride situation. First of all, what are they showing pride in? Their mental aberration? I mean, I see nothing, absolutely nothing different between saying this is a gay pride parade and a sodomy pride parade. And I'm not saying we should persecute these individuals. I'm not saying we should prosecute these individuals. I'm saying don't turn the cameras on them in their dumb parades. Give them a status they really shouldn't have. And believe it or not, Midtown Manhattan, our vice president in charge of sweltering, says it's 95 degrees. That's why he's out there in 57, absolutely, totally nude. Of course, with all the other characters that are out of watch. I tell you, it's just grotesque out there. There's a zoo out there. Anyway, the State Assembly in Albany today passed the $5.25 million program to research AIDS and attempt to find a cure. Let's hope it takes them a long time. The state Senate had previously approved the appropriation in all areas because I detect a little difference. I've noticed only recently, and this is not to do with drunken driving as such, but I notice there is more respect for the red light now, even among some of those skunks that drive cabs. A lot of them, they think the red light's not for them. And some of them are observing the red lights now.
So I have a feeling I would just lose this thing. I think the whole homosexuality concept is really getting out of hand.
Of course it is, and it has because politicians like the governor have pandered to these misfits. Now, I have known Burton Roberts ever since 1970. He was a DA up in Bronx County when I first met him. Then he went to the bench. And I, to this day, don't know why Burton Roberts is fanatically opposed to the death penalty. But time and time again, I've seen some decisions that Burton Roberts has been involved in. And I would not call him a tough judge, but he sure knows how to get the media's attention. He sure knows how to sound like a tough judge. He sure knows how to get in the papers and even the headlines. And, of course, I'm talking about his statements to a teenage murderer by the name of Ivan Mendoza, who killed two elderly women, who, in addition to killing two elderly women, raped his best friend's mother. And the words that Roberts said to this cretin when he sentenced him. Now, you may say, here's a guy who murdered two people, raped another one, and he won't be walking the streets ever again. And I said, no, you're wrong. He will be. And you said, well, he'll be an old man by the time he comes out. I said, no, you're wrong. You say, well, he'll be fairly old. No, you're wrong again. Well, it'll be a long time. No, you're wrong again. It may not be much time at all. Why? Because the state of New York has a bunch of bimbos up there in Albany, and they're still bimbos because they leave on the books laws like this that say because Mendoza was 1 month shy of his 18th birthday, he gets a different status. You see, tell that to the corpses in their graves, will you? Go up to those dead ladies and say, oh, you're supposed to get up and walk because the guy that did this to you was only 17. It didn't count. Well, of course, I think Mendoza should have been executed, to say the least, as all murderers should be, as all enemies of society, predators, all should be. But The thing that annoys me, in addition to Mendoza, is Roberts. Because here he is with again. Now, you keep your eye on Burton Roberts. You keep your eye on him. See if I'm not right. Now, those who have some inside information know that this has been his routine. He makes headline-grabbing statements. He says, what manner of boy are you? You live in a fantasy world of war movies, violence and adventure, TV dramas dealing with shooting and horror, video games where spaceships crash into the ground and Pac-Man eats up and devours all that is around. You're a fantasy boy. You're in a Pac-Man syndrome. And what's he telling this to this guy for? This guy doesn't understand what Roberts is saying. But Roberts knew there were reporters in the courtroom. If I were to compose an open letter, which I haven't done in a while, had an open letter, I might want to compose a letter to Sam Donaldson. Dear Sam, I hope you don't mind my calling you Sam, even though I'm just a lowly peon on local radio in New York, and you're a prestigious pontificator going coast to coast on the ABC television network. Up until a few years ago, it is true we had never heard of you, but lo and behold, you came seemingly out of nowhere to loom as the great omniscience. And it is truly remarkable that you really have been gifted with so much knowledge, that you are a pillar of rectitude, and that above and beyond your services for your company, you are ex officio prosecuting attorney. I think it's absolutely marvelous how you are able to show contempt for the President of the United States, demonstrating that the man, the office, all that goes with it means nothing to you. You're there to show the brass on 6th Avenue in New York. You're there to show them how you can wow everybody. And boy, are you tough. And you know something? Your toughness is so devastating that we don't mind the fact that you're rude. We don't mind the fact that you are petty. We don't mind the fact that you demean the press conference. And after all, Sam, why shouldn't you be like everybody else who attends those affairs? They're not there to get information from the president. They're not there to ask him the questions. They're there to show everybody that they can be tougher than anybody else. But Sam, don't worry, even the Leslie Stalls are no threat to you. Because, Sam, you have proven once again that you can outboor anybody. Keep it up. And who knows, maybe someday people will forget Howard Cosell. Then we're going to invite your telephone calls on this incredible subject of parole primarily. And I want to point out statistically that of the, get a load of these numbers, ladies and gentlemen, there are, or were at airtime, 509,308 individuals incarcerated in federal and state prisons. Get that figure, 509,308. Right now, at least 223,800 individuals are out on parole. In other words, half as many convicts on parole as in federal and state prisons. And I might add, and this is not an issue that we were covering in today's conversation, I might add that in some cases, paroles were granted only because of a lack of space. In other words, new prisoners were coming in, new individuals had been convicted and had to begin their sentences, and they looked down the list and they said, who could we let out to make room for these new guys?
I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly the whole issue. In other words, what authority, who are these people, who are these parole members who really are not judges, they don't have the qualifications, who are really sitting in judgment on these particular individuals? And I'm saying it's about time that we return the responsibility to where it belongs, and that belongs to the judges.
District Attorney Mario Merola, the DA, is with us. Hello.
Yeah, Bob, I don't have a question. I'm Tom Nelson, and I know more about the clip.
All right. By the way, he calls other stations and harasses them, too. He's calling from Brooklyn, otherwise I'd have you prosecute him, because the guy's a phone freak and a sickola. District Attorney, please come back again real soon.
Pleasure.
When he returns, I'll ask him if the ACLU gives him agita. Frank, out of the other end there. You want to talk to Frank?
Yeah, listen. Are you getting to be queer, Bob?
I don't think so. I marched in the gay pride parade Sunday, but I don't think that proves anything.
I think you're a little bit of a fan against to be a faggot, Bob. When you got this guy on, maybe you want to be his partner. I can't understand.
Hey, because I interview him, that means I want to be his partner?
Well, your partner, sure.
I interviewed District Attorney Mario Merola a little while ago. Does that mean I want to be Mario Merola's partner? Interviewed Rabbi Gorton earlier today. Does that mean Colton? Does that mean I want to be the rabbi's partner? What does it mean? Anytime I interview somebody, I want to be their partner? Get off the phone, you creep!
Yes.
All right. Boy, that felt good. I tell you, that felt good. The fact of the matter is, Patrick J. Buchanan, an observer of the American scene, points out that the 57,000 American dead whose names grace the black walls and the Vietnam Veterans Memorial on the Washington Mall will be crudely exploited by a rag bag of radicals and communists openly delighted that the war in which these men perished was lost by the United States. The organization is called the Ad Hoc Committee for July 2 Emergency Mobilization. Its purported goal is to make sure there will be no more Vietnams, especially in Central America. What the July 2nd crowd truly objects to, however, is not another Vietnam or even another Cambodia. They approve of the outcome there. What they object to is the U.S. resisting such communist conquests. An ad placed in a national newspaper May 2nd gives the game away. In the text that disparaged President Reagan's alleged warmongering in Central America, there are these telltale sentences. Listen, I quote, "Ignored is the lesson of Vietnam. No amount of brute force can eradicate popular movements fighting poverty and repression." End of quote. Well, anyone who can contend in 1983 that the liberation forces of Pol Pot or the invading armies of Hanoi that overran the South in 1975 were popular movements fighting poverty and political repression is either a fool, a liar, or a communist. All three will apparently be broadly represented on the mall. I want to review the literature of the organization. It's really time to cease acting as though the opposition to the president's policy came exclusively from the well-intentioned. And it is past time some American liberals were asked to explain just who it is they seem to be bedding down with these days. Among the endorsers of the July 2nd emergency mobilization are a predictable list. Lenin called the stooges that he used useful idiots. That's what Lenin called them. He described Western airheads as useful idiots. Well, let's see. There are half a dozen members of the Black Caucus: Harry Belafonte, Gloria Steinem, the Berrigan Boys, Ramsey Clark. Oh, wouldn't you know? And there's an organization, I'm not making up this name. There really is an organization called DARE, D-A-R-E. It stands for, and I didn't make this up, you can check it out if you don't believe me, Dykes Against Racism Everywhere. DARE. Dykes Against Racism Everywhere. Some of you may wonder, what is that word, dykes? Well, that's a word that has been used for a long, long time when describing a lesbian. They use it on themselves. What do you want from me? You know, if El Salvador falls, almost everyone in Washington will tell you that Honduras, Guatemala, and Costa Rica will be rolled up by Fidel Castro, the Sandinistas. the Soviets. And after giving it a lot of thought, and I don't want to sound hysterical, but after giving it a lot of thought, the message is inescapable. The message that will go out to the world will be simple and direct. Hey, look, the Yankees won't even fight to keep the jackals out of their own backyard. It will truly be open season on the rest of Latin America. And the next question will be, how does the United States handle the revolution when it hits Mexico? Before the lifetimes of most Americans of middle age are over, that crowd on the mall which so reveres the Vietnamese Revolution and the Cuban Revolution and the Nicaraguan Revolution is likely to get a little more excitement than it bargained for. I think it's appropriate to point that out on this Independence Day, 1983.
Hello, Mr. Graham.
Sir.
I just came back about 7 weeks ago from San Salvador.
Yes, sound like you're calling from there right now.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again.
I hate those operators.
To help you.
Hello?
Hey, operator.
Yeah.
You're a recording. That's what I think of you. You're a recording. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yes, Mr. Graham. I was there just about...
She's coming back again.
Sorry, your call cannot be completed as dialed.
You're sorry.
Please check the number.
I'm sorry, you cavone.
Your operator to help you.
That operator's a cavone.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
I was off. Of course, I backed Mr. President Reagan 100%.
Here she comes again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, your call...
Bavangul. Hey, what's going on here?
And dial again. Or call your operator to help you.
Well, listen, pal, there's no point in us doing this anymore. I mean, you know, the first 3,000 times it was hilarious.
Yeah. I was also there 19...
So long, pal.
Sorry, your call cannot be completed.
Yeah, I'm sorry, too.
Please check the number and dial again.
All right.
Operator to help you.
I can't... Isn't that funny? I tried hanging up, and it kept... Is it still there? No, it's not there. Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's still there.
Completed as dialed.
Yeah, it's amazing. ER is Jerome Becker, former criminal court judge. What do you think of this series in the Times on the breakdown of criminal court, Jerry?
I thought it was fabulous. I think it was something that had to be written, had to be reported. I remember when I resigned from the bench on December 31st of last year, I said I was resigning because it was a swamp.
Right.
And I didn't want to sink in it, and I mentioned some of these areas. But I think my statements were bald statements. This was an in-depth article written by the Times and ER, which I think spells out succinctly to the public what a sewer that courtroom is, how undignified it is. It's probably one of the most important courts in our city today, where we're supposed to mete out justice, and it's just not being done there. It's really an assembly line with judges no more than judicial brokers or judicial clerks. The name of the game in our courts today is disposition. You know, you're a judicial broker, you try to make a deal. And in the course of making those deals, the defendants are very smart. They realize that this plea bargaining is going on. They know you're going to get a deal. So a person steals, commits petty larceny 45 times. 60 days means 45 days. You're a good time. You're out there. It's part of the business, part of the overhead. And then we compound it. You take the three-card Monte player out there who's making $200 a day, $300 a day. The small drug dealer who's making $1,000 a day. And those unfortunate ladies that are swept up in that prostitution business that are making big money too, that they have to pay to their pimps. When they're arrested, they get a free attorney. We pay for that. You pay for that. ER pays for that. The Legal Aid Society represents them because on their criminal justice sheet, which gives their background, their income, their background about employment and income, they will show no visible means of support, which is absolutely a joke. And so they get a free attorney, they get an easy plea bargain, and they're out on the street again, and they laugh at us, and it's part of the overhead of doing business. So when ER labels her article Turnstile Justice, she's hitting it right on the head.
So, what else is new? Indeed, what else is new? I find it very disturbing as an American citizen that time and time again within these past 20 years or so, clever, opportunistic individuals have succeeded in taking the heat off of defendants who are on trial for heinous crimes and making a mockery of the justice system by trying to put the jury on trial. Now that Brinks murder, robbery, took place in 1981, was it? Here it is, 1983. And they're just now trying to pick a jury, and the tactics of the defense is such that it's going to take a long time to pick a jury. And what disturbs me, perhaps more than anything else, is that these poor American citizens who didn't do anything to anybody are frightened to death, afraid to be put on that jury. Now, if that isn't the law of the jungle in action, I don't know what is. But how dare we allow the machinery of justice to be sabotaged by murderers, robbers, enemies of society who have in fact declared war on society at large, on this government in particular, and on each and every American citizen. How dare we allow this to happen? And one postscript. Doesn't anybody care, for heaven's sake? Media wouldn't do anything wrong. The media is above reproach. We in the media do no wrong. We are above the law. We can cross-examine presidents like they're felons. Why, we've got our buddy Sam Donaldson down there, for example, who goes to press conferences and talks to the President of the United States like President of the United States is some stunad. We've got Judy Woodruff, who acts as though she's the goddess of truth and light, with her smirk, her sneer, her leer. No, we can do no wrong here, the media. I want to tell you that we have Kathy Wilson on our newsmaker line, and we'll be talking with her in just one moment.
Away before we get to the point, frankly, where...
Well, what is it? What will it take to satisfy people like you?
Well, I think we want equal representation, which means we want as many people representing us as the population we comprise.
Are you and I of... I'm an American citizen. Are you?
This is true.
You make it sound like you and I live in two different nations. You talk about equal representation.
Well, we do live in two different worlds as far as representation of our sex.
I voted for Representative Millicent Fenwick for the United States Senate last November.
And we endorsed her.
I didn't think in terms of the fact that she's a woman. Oh, goody, she's a woman. I just liked her philosophy better than her opponents, her political philosophy. But you would have us really bifurcate ourselves, wouldn't you? Men against women.
I think you're being very hostile, and I think you're putting words in my mouth.
Yes, I am hostile because I see people like you get all the coverage in the world, get on television, and you keep talking about women's rights, and I'd like to know what it is that you want.
Well, are you ready to let me tell you, or do you want to keep talking?
It all depends. I can't guarantee I'm just going to sit here mute.
Women generally want the American dream to be something other than gender-specific, and it is not that now, and we are not going to get it with this president. And so that's what women in the political caucus were saying, even though it seemed to irritate you that we got a lot of coverage.
Well, I think one of the reasons you got a lot of coverage was it was a dull weekend.
Country.
It was a slow weekend.
It's what women across the country are insisting on, and if you look at the poll data, and that may also irritate you, women are clearly expressing themselves through the polls. Women are going public with their private values, and it's called the gender gap, and whether you like it or not... I
really got to you, didn't I?
I think you've gotten to yourself. I think whether you like it or not, women are expressing themselves and will continue to express themselves.
You're so used to being interviewed by people who just play it straight with you and don't dare disagree with you.
Oh, no, I think a lot of people disagree with me. They just do it in a more polite, professional way than you've done it. But at any rate, I think women are interested...
How do they do it in a more polite, professional way? By just not saying anything?
In 1984, I think President Reagan and I think people like you will realize that women will determine who the president will be in 1984.
Well,
That annoys you?
no, you annoy me. The issue doesn't annoy me, but you annoy me.
Well, sorry about that.
Yes, I am too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You're right. I tell you, I'm guilty of wanting to experience what some people might call a machaya. I needed that machaya very good. I needed very much to tell her that I was sick and tired of what she'd been saying all week long. Yeah.
Does she mean that because there's 51% of the women population, that automatically there should be 51% of the people without us having to vote, whether it's a man or a woman, types groups or any particular thing that say, well, we got a majority of a certain number of people, so we automatically...
I know. Well, it's insanity, and it's going to split this country if we go on this way in counting what percentage of people represent what percentage of people. I thought when a person was elected mayor, he was elected mayor for everybody. Vote out every single incumbent.
Yeah, well,
I swear to you, Jim, if at the next election every single incumbent were knocked out, no matter who that was, knocked out, that would send a message.
Can't we get Barry Farber to run again?
Well, I'll ask him. Barry, you want to run again? Well, I don't know. They have a job open for me. Maybe I'll be disappeared. He wants to run for president of the Norwegian Underground, he just told me.
Oh, they were?
It'll be continued sunny and hot and humid. Partly cloudy and warm tonight with chance of thunderstorms, as we told you. Tomorrow, sunny and hot, but not so humid. Sunday, sunny and very hot. Uffa-va-nobly, but crying out loud. I feel better that I said that. I feel better. Wait, speaking of Brooklyn, what happened to Nicolino Volio? More importantly, whatever happened to Nunzio at Rose Messina? The reason I asked that, I got a lot of mail from people saying, why do you ask it? Well, they disappeared, you see. And, of course, there's only two reasons someone you thought was a good friend or good friends of yours would disappear. Either they met with foul play, and if that's the case, we should call the police and block all exits. Or they're cavones at heart and don't feel the need to give a guy a call or drop him a line. You see? One or the other. One thing we have learned in this business, as they have learned in the publishing business, is that the American listener, the American viewer, the American reader, the American consumer never gets enough recipes or enough diets or enough advice. What I want to know is, with all the advice that we get in this country on maintaining or achieving proper weight, how come there's so many Groschetochuses walking around? How come there's so many Kiataloozes? How come there's so many fatties around? Now, how did I get started on that? I don't know. It's stream of consciousness. Stream of consciousness. I would have made a great psychiatric patient in classic Freudian. And I know we have a lot of people involved in the psychiatric world listening to this program, because there's something about the gestalt of this program that attracts people a little bit on the fringes of mental health. And let's face it, in the whole wide panoply of the Meshuggahs, the most Meshuggah of all are the psychologists and the psychiatrists. It's a fact. Known fact.
Campaign to adopt the federal system of selecting juries?
Yes, Alan, it failed, unfortunately, because of some very short-sighted, selfish, narrow-minded, grasping skunks up in Albany.
I know. Hello, Bob.
Yes.
This is Tony from Hackensack.
Tony from Hackensack, as opposed to Tony from Rawway or Tony from Linden.
Yeah, but I got a Balich.
Oh, a Balich.
Yeah.
Manaj.
That you were talking to.
Yeah, listen, I got to find the right lady with a Balich. And settle down. That's what I got to do.
Yeah, country club atmosphere.
Yeah. Well, you know, speaking of country club atmosphere, all these abscam skunks and other political personages who get sent away, they really get the country club atmosphere.
It's all right, they do.
And I see where Fred Richmond already is in a halfway house. Already.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And
I'm like a properly serious guy. What do you think of the fact that Joe Califano went on national television today and said that we shouldn't do anything about these two congressmen who seduced teenage pages? Daniel Crane, at least Daniel Crane is heterosexual. I mean, you know, the other guy's even worse.
I think they ought to take them to the middle of the Atlantic and drop them in.
But, you know, I mean, you know, so...
It's terrible.
So these two congressmen, they did something which is absolutely reprehensible. They took advantage of children. The persons were of age. That's something else again. In the case of one of the congressmen, the guy's gay. I cannot believe that he's going to be returned. He won't be reelected. They may have reelected Fred Richmond, but they're not going to elect this guy. He doesn't come from the 14th district in Manhattan.
By Carver, Minnesota, for the past 42 years.
Then you don't have any more enamel on your teeth.
I don't have any cavities.
Yeah, that's because you're a Calabrese. That's why.
Sicilian.
All right, a Siciliano, just as bad. I mean, just as good. Excuse me. Oh, I didn't mean that. Okay. Oh. Hey.
Stata corta.
Stata corta, stata tienne pure. But really, that's what saved you, is being Siciliano. Because if you weren't, the baking soda would have worn away all the enamel from your teeth. I did it right now. But most of them that I know of have used their telephone privileges for personal reasons, and they've gotten away with it because the way it's set up, it's very easy to get away with. They just, every now and then, the accounting office checks the bills, you know, and it says, oh, you've been calling, do you have a gumar? Do you have a gumar in Chappaqua? And the guy says, no. Well, how come all these long calls in Chappaqua? Well, my constituents are very concerned about Chappaqua. And the guy says, yeah, but at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're talking till 3:30? The guy's got a gumar up there, you see? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Attention to the editorial in the Daily News of last Sunday. In the meantime, we've discovered a violation of journalistic ethics by columnist George Will, who helped the Reagan staff, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then he goes on some kind of campaign and never reported it. Will's column has appeared occasionally in the Daily News, period.
Right.
Sentence, 3 words. It won't anymore.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Please tell me how the New York Daily News can set itself up as judge and jury and condemn the integrity of a man like George Will?
Well, they can do it very easily because as part and parcel of what is known euphemistically as the media, they have developed an arrogant attitude, a sanctimonious feeling about themselves, which says that somehow or other they are above reproach, that they can determine what is right and what is wrong. But I can assure you that if I called the Daily News with some pilfered material, whether I stole it from somebody, broke into some place to get it, but it was material that would assure them of a tremendous run on the newsstand, that would assure them of eye-catching, titillating headlines, they wouldn't hesitate to use it. And hypocrisy is one of the traits that disturbs me more than anything else about individuals or institutions. And as an institution, I think the Daily News has deteriorated a great deal in the 13 and a half years that I have been reading. Now, if you're calling from Westchester County, and please, I don't want to hear any more about Ugumbara from Yonkers. There is no more Ugumbara from Yonkers. Just rambling with Grant. 25 minutes past 6. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes, Ugumbara. Nowhere in the history of telephone talk radio has a caller been more famous, has become a greater star than Ugumbara. And even though he's no longer with us, people still talk about him. I wonder if he's calling Long John Nebel up there in that big radio station in the sky. I could just hear it now. Oh, John.
What do you want to talk about on WMCA?
And what's happening is, and Al Shanker, of course, is very astute. He says, is this a coincidence, or are they trying to intimidate Mr. Shanker and the UFT? Did I say AFT? UFT. But let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, and I say this without fear of any remonstrance. I say this with all impunity. The history is quite clear over the last 20 years or so. Those who preach that they are pro-civil rights are the most illiberal, anti-First Amendment people I've ever heard of. You've got to march in lockstep with them, otherwise they smear you, they intimidate you, and wherever possible they destroy you. Well, they're not going to destroy Al Shanker and the United Federation of Teachers. Because if they could have, I should say, they would have long ago. They've been after his neck for a long time. Because he has dared to stand up against quotas. Congratulations, Al Shanker, for being a mensch then and now. We're going to meet Captain James T. Bush, an associate of the Center for Defense Information. Captain, you're a captain of what?
Well, I'm Captain U.S. Navy, retired, I'm sorry.
Okay. Did you have a ship under your command, sir?
Yes, I was the commanding officer of the USS Simon Bolivar, a Polaris submarine firing ship. At the present time, the Navy has a proposal to place a surface action group, which is a battleship plus 3 destroyers and a cruiser, in one of 3 northeast ports, either Boston, Rhode Island, or New York. Now, they're looking at those 3 ports. They've asked for proposals from the ports. They are considering the information, and they are going to decide later this year which one of these ports to put these ships in. Now, these ships will have cruise missiles on board. As a matter of fact, they expect to have 360 cruise missiles on a battleship. The warhead on it, the nuclear warhead on these weapons will have 200 kilotons, the roughly 10 times the size of the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. Now, I'm not sure that the people of New York are well aware of the fact that this might be what's in store for them. And I've kind of been trying to point this out where I could.
They will react accordingly. I think it's safe to say that anybody that heard you just now would not want to have those weapons here. And they would say Rhode Island and Massachusetts can have them.
Well, of course, there is a reason.
And you present it in such a way that all these anti-nuke people would love to have you go around saying what you did.
Well,
if you came here to praise Caesar, you certainly buried him.
I don't really think that they have looked down the road and discovered that after unemployment is no longer a problem, you're still going to have some very dangerous nuclear weapons sitting in New York Harbor.
Tip O'Neill didn't send you down here to say that, did he?
No, actually, Tip O'Neill supports this. As a matter of fact, there's...
Yeah, he supports it, but he'd like to have it up in Boston.
And he supports it in Boston. That's exactly correct. I have made this same pitch to the Boston City Council, by the way, and I've made the same pitch also to the governor.
Why are you doing this, Captain? Are you opposed to the fleet being anywhere in populated areas? Is there something you know that we don't?
No. Well, to a certain extent, I am opposed to the fleet being in populated areas. There's very little doubt of that.
Not a friend, a confidant of Admiral LaRocque, are you?
Yes. The Center for Defense Information
now I get the picture. It all adds up. Now it all adds up. When a Navy man talks the way you do, there's only one answer, and that is he's a buddy of Admiral LaRocque.
Well, let me say...
What happened all those years on active duty? Did the strain get to you?
No, not at all. I will say this, that I came out dedicated to do what I could to avoid ever using the weapons that I had under my command. I do think that nuclear war is not something that the world can afford to have.
Well, I don't think... I've never met anybody who was for it. Not anybody who was for it.
Very true. You look at the Trident submarine, and it's updated with the Poseidon submarine. The B-1 bomber is an update to the B-52 bomber. The cruise missile is an entirely new weapon system, and something that isn't matched by the Soviet Union. We presently have the capability of placing roughly a little over 10,000 nuclear warheads on the Soviet Union. We plan to build 8,000 cruise missiles. That's a substantial increase.
What type of weapon is the Pershing, Admiral?
The Pershing... Captain, thanks, Bob. If I could get...
I was thinking of Admiral LaRocque.
If I could get promoted on retired list, I'd try. The capability of striking their SS-18s, their SS-19s, their SS-20s. Yeah. And so the Soviets are very concerned about the Pershing II, and to a certain extent we are, too. Because when we have a missile that only takes, say, 6 minutes to get to the Soviet Union, what we've done is we've reduced their time to react. They have 6 minutes to decide whether this is a real strike or not. We have put them into a situation where if they want to use those SS-18s and SS-19s before they're destroyed by Pershing IIs, they want to open their missile hatches and get them off, they've got a 6-minute period of time in which to make that decision.
I think you're in. I believe that they are an alarmist organization, extremely negative in their outlook, and if anything, the captain has his head in the sand.
You know how I feel about the center. As a matter of fact, you know how I feel about Admiral LaRocque. You know the verbal swords that Admiral LaRocque and I have crossed on several occasions.
Captain Bush, I hate to be rude, but you disgust me. You say you want to inform the people. Why aren't you informing the people that at the nuclear rally in Central Park last year, prominent among the organizers and participants were members of the Russian embassy identified by some journalists as KGB members? Why don't you stop talking like a 15-year-old child, saying that we all have enough to blow each other up? That's what 15-year-olds argue. The point isn't anymore how many bombs each side has. It's the increased technology. It's the increased ability to deliver, to use lasers in the sky, to use all kinds of monstrous weapons. And we can't let ourselves get behind or we'll be destroyed. What about SALT 1 and 2, which the Russians broke? They break every treaty, and you want us to sell ourselves?
Over in the Russians have 50 SS-4 with 1 megaton with an 800-mile range. They also have 350 SS-5s, 1 megaton, 1,600-mile range. Now, these are fixed units. Then they designed the SS-20. They now have 250 of those SS Mobile in Europe, 100 of them are in Asia. But that has a range of over 3,000 miles. They can reach down to Portugal. They can reach Iceland. Now, these have the same capacity as the Pershing II. In 5 minutes, 10 minutes, they can strike Europe. But we never hear about that. We only hear that the Pershing II is going to be a first strike capacity. Yet, Pershing II can't even reach Moscow. I'd like to have...
But you did not mention that the SS-20 does not strike any of the United States' intercontinental weapons. The Pershing IIs can, in fact, strike the Soviets' intercontinental weapons and their command and control centers. Now,
And maybe we'll have you come back again, and hopefully the next time you'll say you've seen the light. 3 WMC, if you're calling from New York. The Westchester County line is free. The Gumbada's hung up. He's not using it anymore. He hung up his telephone a long time ago. 3, go ahead, Lou.
Yes, I'd like to differentiate between Congressman Stutz and Congressman Crane. Now, I am a conservative and bent, but I could even see re-electing Crane while not Stutz, because Crane's whole demeanor was one of remorse, seemingly embarrassment. Stutz was defiant, and I think Stutz is going going to continue to push his lifestyle, and this is the whole indication that he gave us. So,
Yeah, go ahead.
we're having a problem.
It won't stay. Keith, line 3 won't stay on unless I hold it. I feel like the boy with his finger in the dike. Speaking of dike, okay, go ahead. It's interesting you point out the arrogance of the homosexual one of the two, and that's because of this idiotic gay rights movement and how we have been intimidated by it. I thank you.
This is Anita from Westchester.
Let me congratulate you, Anita, for being the first person in 228 days to use the Westchester County line. Ever since Ugumbara retired or whatever he did, this line has been dead. Does anything go? And apparently in his district of Massachusetts, anything does go. The interesting thing is Crane, who did at least have sex with a member of the opposite sex and one who admittedly egged him on, and Crane, who was very obviously contrite and did apologize profusely and I think sincerely, will probably not be reelected. Studs, the homosexual of the two, the sicker of the two, if you will, the one who had on several occasions plied page boys with liquor and did seduce them by his own admission. Studs, who was arrogant and not really contrite, will probably be reelected. So that tells you the difference between the two congressional districts of the individuals involved.
Something is wrong somewhere.
And I know it's in Massachusetts. Thank you, dear.
Bob?
Yes?
This is Henry, New York.
Yes, Henry.
I'm calling you to say I disagree with you.
Yes, continue, please.
Well, I think the managers down there have to keep their job. I don't think there's anything wrong. That's fun.
Okay, that's why we have the Instapoll, Henry, to get all the views. Henry thought I was going to fall off my chair because he said, I don't agree with you. All right. That's our Instapoll, and outside of Henry, I think they all made a lot of sense, right? WMCA, checking the latest from our newsroom. The Brinks defendants began questioning their prospective jurors today at the trial of the 3 accused of the robbery and murders of 3 people in Rockland County. And the defendants, acting on their own acting as their own attorneys, compared their alleged terrorist acts. Get a load of this now. This is going to nauseate you. You're all going to retch with this. They compared their terrorist acts with George Washington's battles against the British. No matter how you slice it, Wojciech Jaruzelski is a communist, and his loyalty is not with his native land, but his heart is in Moscow. Tony Bennett may have left his heart in San Francisco, but Jaruzelski's heart and all the communist swine who head up the Warsaw regime are traitors to their country because they're more concerned with bowing to Moscow.
Apportionment. How does it come about all the time when you have minorities in sections? Who causes it?
Causes what, sir?
These apportionment, like you have to have a certain amount of representation, you have a certain amount of Hispanics, a certain amount of blacks in the areas.
Well, you don't have to. The Constitution says nothing about quotas. What it is a case of politicians trying to appease various pressure groups.
We had some servicemen into my apartment to have my carpet shampoo. I'm paying them X numbers of dollars to do the job, but yet they are using my electricity and also using my services to call back into their office to say, I'm at Mrs. So-and-so home, and then they'll use a second call saying, I'm calling my next person that I'm going to after you. I'm calling them. It's no charges to you. It will be the company charges. But when you get your telephone bill, it's on your telephone bill, but yet they're telling you no. My other, specifically, the question is, if you have someone to come into your home, you're paying them to do a service in your home.
Right.
When they come, they should come equipped to do the job without using your electricity, which is an added expense to you, because you're already paying them for the job. So you're paying for the job 2 times. By using your electricity and also using your telephone, that's an added expense to you. You're paying for one job, for your carpet to be clean or whatever you're having clean.
Well, if they have to use equipment that plugs in, I really don't think that they should have to pay you for whatever electricity is used.
But you're paying them for a job.
That's true.
You're paying them X numbers of dollars for a job to be...
I'm well aware of that, but you're saying that What are you saying? That they should bring their own generator and generate their own electricity?
Suppose I don't have electricity. How are they going to do the job? They accepted the job. So I feel...
Is there a full moon out?
Excuse me? That's not a stupid question. I think it's a very sensible...
No one said it was stupid. I just think it's rather bizarre.
No, I think many people have that idea.
So what are you saying? That you should be able to bill them for the amount of electricity they use to clean your carpet?
Compensate me. I'm paying you for the job. Say, for instance, I'm working...
Well, how do they compensate you? To what? How much electricity do you think they're using?
When you have to... Say, for instance, they don't do the job right. They're coming back. You have 2 days of approximately an hour to hour and a half. 2 days of the same thing. And you're also having your time...
Well, have you computed how much energy they're using, how much electricity they're using?
Computed, but I'm sure Con Edison is not playing with anybody as far as the bills are concerned. They're not playing...
Well, look, all I'm asking you is how do you figure out... I mean, this is... Look, I'll be honest with you. I think the whole thing is ridiculous.
I don't think so. I think it's quite sensible. You know why do I feel it's sensible? Because if you're paying me to do a job, I must come and quit to do that job. And you...
Somebody calls, wants to know why people aren't paid for organs donated. Now, this lady wants to know why, if you call somebody to clean your carpet, they don't pay you for the electricity they use to clean your carpet.
Because you've already paid...
Why did I come in today? I'm beginning to wonder.
I'd like to express my opinion about these entitlement programs. I think that they're really ridiculous, and I think that they're ruining the country as far as I'm concerned.
Well, there's no doubt about it. You know, the word entitlement is a misnomer. What do they mean, entitled? Who makes anybody entitled to have his hand in another guy's pocket? New York City is going ahead with concerts in Central Park. The Parks Commissioner said today the vandalism that took place Friday at the Diana Ross concert would not keep future concerts from happening. Well, I'll tell you what. They've had a Shakespeare show going on there. They've been doing Richard III. There's been no problem because Richard III does not attract the type of riffraff that other programs attract. Would you like to have gone into Central Park with a Sherman tank and a flamethrower, as I would have?
Hey, did you hear what that guy said on the radio? He's crazy. He actually voices them crazy ideas. Next thing you know, somebody's going to go down to the Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland and get one of them things. But did you catch the obscene travesty perpetrated on the American League and baseball in general by those swine better known as the New York Yankees? If it had been any other team, it never would have worked. What I want to know is if George Brett comes up to bat and they know he's using what they believe is an illegal bat, why let him go ahead and hit the home run first and then lodge the protest? But the idiocy to let him hit the home run and then complain. And by the way, for those of you who think Billy Martin is such a genius, that Boston Red Sox reject, Don Zimmer, is the guy that told him about it. And feisty Greg Nettles, who unfortunately has not grown old, gracefully or otherwise. Now, I tell you, I saw a bumper sticker. I wanted to catch up with a guy who had it so I could find out where he got it, because I'd like to get one. It said, "I love New York, but I hate the Yankees." But I hope the record books see fit to put that home run back for George Brett, because I think that whole thing just plain old stinks. Anyway, 343 WMCA is our number if anybody has nothing better to do. Saying, and I think the rule is so vague that to take away a legitimate home run from a ball player is totally unacceptable, or should be to the American baseball fan, even the rabid Yankee fans, who I've got to tell you, are divided into two parts. The older Yankee fans seem to be pretty gentlemanly and decent folk, but this new breed of Yankee fan is the type of individual that marauded Central Park the other night. They have the same type of mentality. They're like the golden hordes of Tamerlane, Genghis Khan. I mean, it's just they're just incredible, insatiable for victory. Yeah, Jerry, I appreciate your call. I thank you very much. Give my regards to Westchester County. And if you ever get to Yonkers, Go see Nettie, and ask her what the heck happened to Ogumbara, will you?
Ogumbara, I don't know. I've been on Park Hill. I haven't seen him around.
Really? I don't even know. I got to ask the guys over on Arthur Avenue whether he goes around there. I'll ask Nick, who takes numbers. I'll ask him.
I'll ask Louie over in Park Hill, and maybe he'll find him. Maybe.
All right, let's zero in on Ogumbara. Let's smoke out Ogumbara.
Okay, Bob.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Okay. WMCA. Really, we got to smoke out Ogumbara because there's a big affair.
By the way, the Yanks play Texas tonight down there. Mets and Braves play at Shea. News, I'm Beverly Poppel. Top of the hour to you. Now, Bob Grant.
I hope the Rangers kill him. You're more interested, at least I would hope that you were more interested in the preservation of this nation and our way of life and this Constitution that we're both talking about, right?
And that's exactly why I disagree with what the president's doing.
But there are those of us, and since you were honest enough to make it clear that you didn't approve, I want to make it clear that I do approve of any attempt to topple the Ortega brothers and their bloody band of Castroite betrayers of the Somoza overthrow. I think that it's inimical to not only us, but the rest of Central America to see the Sandinistas continue in power. And if we can get rid of them, short of war, I say, let's get rid of them.
I think that's right view. You have to step back a little bit and say, why did they come to power? How did they come to power? In the very first place, because we had a Somoza down there who was a corrupt dictator.
May I ask you what good that does to go back? I don't know anybody who is defending Somoza. This is a question of Somoza or the Sandinistas, Mr. Marchetti.
Down there is poverty, no democracy.
Mr. Marchetti, are you saying it's either Somoza or the Sandinistas? Isn't there something in between?
No, not at all. I'm saying that they're just as bad. One is as bad as the other.
Well, then, if we saw Somoza go and we said good riddance, why can't we see the Sandinistas go and say good riddance?
Because then we're either going to have another Somoza or we're going to have another Sandinista group. What we've got to do is get down there.
You say there's no in between, sir?
Yes, I'm saying.
I feel like I'm on a ship, but it's not really a ship. It's not the QE2. It's not the Queen Mary. It's the Flying Dutchman. You know the legend of the Flying Dutchman? I feel like I'm on the Flying Dutchman. Maybe a creation of Thornton Wilder, maybe an Outward Bound. I feel like I could utter any four-letter word I want or say anything, any outrageous thing, and do it with total impunity. Why? Well, have you ever heard this one? You got to be really, really esoteric for this now. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, how do you know it makes a noise? In order to have sound, you have to have ears. In other words, sound is not sound. Only the hearing of it makes it sound. That's a little over your head, I know. But what I'm saying is, this is not really a radio program because it takes two to have a program. One to emanate and one to listen. We have the former. The former we have. I mean, you know, is it true that in order to get people to even bother calling anymore since they've gotten so blasé, you have to be 100% outrageous at all times? I don't think there's anybody in his right mind who wouldn't agree that it's a good thing we got rid of Allende.
Well, yeah,
Can you imagine the problems he would have caused if we didn't get rid of him?
Well, we got rid of Mr. Abram for a moment.
Morris Abram?
Now, Morris Abram, and the media isn't giving him the courage he should. He's got the most impeccable liberal and civil rights credentials that anybody could possibly have. He was president of the United Negro College Fund for 10 years, president of Brandeis University. He was involved in civil rights before anybody heard of Martin Luther King, et cetera, et cetera. But he happened to have had the temerity to come out against a quota system. And that's what the whole argument's about.
You know what I really don't understand, and maybe I never will, although I would make the effort. I would bend every effort to try to at least understand, although I could never agree, but at least understand why the Times takes the supine position on this issue. Do they feel guilty? Were their family members large slave owners? I really would like to know, because I can't understand the obvious backbending that their editorial writers have done for as long as I've read this newspaper, which goes back, antedates by a long shot my even coming to the city.
Antebellum. But, you know, this argument about going back in time, you do not correct yesterday's injustice with today's injustice. That seems to me is so basic that even to talk about it is stupid.
Well, even Justice Byron White, in a little known opinion, little publicized opinion, said, for how long does this righting of the wrong, in quotes, for how long does this go on? When is the signal given that all past wrongs have been expiated?
Well, I'm going to be talking about, but I'd like to read to you, and I know you don't like it.
My grandfather came to this country and was discriminated against terribly.
My grandfather was probably a slave in Poland, so it's really academic.
Yeah, right.
You a quick Supreme Court decision in the Bakke case, the minority. The 14th Amendment permits race to be the decisive consideration in a university admissions program. That was for Brennan, Blackmun, Marshall, and White. The four liberal judges said that the 14th Amendment, and it doesn't, but they said it does, permits race to be the decisive consideration in university admissions program. Bob Jones University just got slammed for maybe doing that. But the four liberal justices said it's okay. Now, why couldn't it be done if it was primarily a white institution and we only want to do it with whites?
Because we have a double standard, and if you are asking for special privileges for blacks, then you are a great civil rights advocate. If you're asking to counter that in any way or balance that in any way, then you are a no good, lousy racist.
Like, even if you don't ask for special for white, if you ask for equal.
That's what I'm saying.
Jesse Jackson went to Chicago and said to black people, vote for Washington because he's black. And that was considered fine. But when there was discussion of voting for Mr. Epton as a white, then it became racist. Now, either they were both racist or neither was racist.
Well, that's true, Bert. And what I just don't understand is how people like Mr. Rosenthal of the Times, who I can't understand why he chooses not to accept that logic, why he insists on maintaining a double standard. And I can't believe that it's through stupidity, so it must be through guilt or some kind of misguided vested interest. By the way, I have a super that is unbelievable. I finally found out what happened. He had applied to be a stormtrooper, and he found out that the stormtroopers were disbanded in 1945. And after he stopped crying, he decided, well, the next best thing is to be a Soviet border guard. And the Soviets wouldn't have him. So the third best thing was to be a superintendent in Woodbridge, New Jersey. To the surprise of a lot of people in the media, there are those individuals who like to pick on a president, especially a conservative president. A lot of people. You see, this is the difference between, I'm trying to figure out why there is a difference between yours truly and most of the other members of this profession. When I say this profession, I mean people who write for newspapers, people who speak on television, people who talk on the radio. Not just the people you hear and see, but people who work behind the scenes. And I think one of the, maybe the only difference is that most of the people I talk to and most of the people I associate with and most of the people whose company I seek are not in the media. They're you, and you, and you. The people from all walks of life, and not necessarily the most lofty, not necessarily those who hold high stations in life. I don't hang around with the Bianca Jagger crowd, rest assured. Although Sam Donaldson may want to change the agenda, Leslie Stahl may not approve, and all those other self-appointed, sanctimonious, arrogant individuals who think they have been elected the conscience of America may have different ideas about the agenda, but nevertheless, the president clearly wants to talk about Central America. Critics of the administration want an emphasis on economic rather than military aid. But let me point out, 70 cents of every dollar is economic aid, because we have hypnotized ourselves into believing that there was something indecent about being strong and powerful.
Don't you think we need to make other moves besides military ones? Cultural moves to preach the doctrine of freedom and democracy?
In the meantime, what do you do about the skunks that are loading up the El Salvador rebels with arms and killing people? What do?
You have to stop the arms, and you have to be militarily strong, but you have to do more than that, I think.
Well, I think that we should do both, but never be afraid to do either one.